This happened 2 summers ago. I was 32, and my friends and I thought a camping trip would be a fun escape from our busy lives. I've camped plenty of times, so I figured I could handle a weekend in the woods. We found a spot deep in the national forest, surrounded by tall pines and close to a river. It felt quiet, too quiet, like the trees were waiting for something. I've never stopped thinking about that weekend. The first night was fun. We set up the tents, built a fire, and shared stories. It felt like a normal campfire night. But on the second night, things began to change. While we were sitting around the fire, I heard laughter drifting through the trees. It was soft and unsettling, not like the laughter of friends. My friends heard it too, but we brushed it off, thinking it was just other campers nearby. As the nights went on, the laughter became different. It came from different directions and felt much closer. Shadows moved between the trees, quick flashes that made my heart race. I watched my friends grow tense. They became jumpy, glancing nervously at the dark woods. Then Tom went missing. He was one of the guys in our group. We couldn't get to him. We called out for him, but there was no response. The atmosphere shifted from fun to heavy. I felt a knot in my stomach as we put out the fire and searched the woods. Panic bubbled inside me. Finally, we found Tom. He stood in a patch of darkness, silent. I called out to him, but he didn't move. Felt unreal, like watching a bad horror movie. I took a step closer, watching his face, and he turned his head slowly. The light from my flashlight flickered on him. His eyes looked blank, and for a moment, it felt like he didn't even know me. Then he laughed. It wasn't his laugh. It echoed through the trees like it was mocking us. I asked if he was okay, but the laughter grew louder, wrapping around us like a blanket of dread. The shadows seemed to close in, and my heart was racing. I felt a chill run down my spine. We didn't stay long after that. We hurried to pack up our things. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Even now, late at night, I sometimes hear laughter echoing in my mind. It's like a ghostly reminder of that trip. I think about Tom and the unsettling laughter. I still wonder about what we really encountered out there in the woods. As I sit here, sharing this story, I can't help but ask myself, was it real or was it all in our heads? Were those shadows just our imaginations? Or was something watching us the whole time? I don't think I'll ever know. The next day, we decided to take a hike. We thought getting away from the camp would lift our spirits. The sun was shining, and the woods felt a bit less oppressive in the daylight. Still, I couldn't shake the unease from the previous night. As we walked, I kept glancing back toward the campsite, half expecting to see Tom standing there again. He was acting strange, almost like he wasn't himself after that night. The laughter echoed in my mind like a drumbeat, making everything around us feel distorted. After a couple of hours of walking, we found a clearing. It opened up to a beautiful view of the valley below. My friends started joking and taking pictures, but I stood apart from them, scanning the treeline. That's when I noticed something. A worn trail that looked like it led deeper into the woods. My curiosity got the better of me. I told the group I was going to check it out. They hesitated, but I assured them I would be back in just a few minutes. I walked down the path, the soft ground giving under my shoes. The laughter took shape in my head again, and I struggled to drown it out. The trail twisted and turned, leading me further away from the laughter of my friends. I arrived at a small, abandoned cabin. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years. The door hung slightly open, creaking with the slightest breeze. I felt an odd pull to walk inside. I pushed the door and stepped in. The air felt heavy, holding on to secrets. Boxes lay scattered around the floor, some toppled over, with dust covering everything. I poked through them. Old clothes, broken furniture, but what caught my eye was a stack of photographs. They were yellowing, worn, but I could still see faces peeking through the fog of time. I didn't recognize anyone, but they wore odd expressions, some smiling, others appearing shocked or terrified. One photo stood out. A group of people gathered in front of a cabin that looked similar to the one I was in. The date at the bottom read, Summer 2003. That's when I felt it, a chill wash over me. The laughter returned, louder this time, echoing in my ears. Suddenly, I wasn't alone. I spun around, heart pounding in my chest, expecting to see one of my friends playing a joke. But there was nothing, just shadows flickering against the walls. Then I heard something else. A whisper, too quiet to discern but unmistakably there. I stepped back instinctively, my foot catching on a loose floorboard. I stumbled, and the sound of laughter erupted again, this time mingled with a soft scream. I bolted for the door, my breath quickening. As I reached the entrance, something caught my eye outside. A figure standing just beyond the tree-line, half hidden in the shadows. My heart dropped. Was it Tom? Another lost camper? Couldn't tell. Everything felt suffocating. I turned and ran back to my friends, the laughter chasing me. A twisted echo that wouldn't let go. I burst into the clearing, frantically searching for them. But they were gone. I was alone. The trees seemed to close in around me. The laughter faded into a sinister silence as I called out their names, the sense of dread crushing my chest. Then the wind shifted. I could hear it again, the mocking laughter, now creeping from every direction. "Join us!" it called softly, echoing from the depths of the forest. I had to find my friends. I had to get out. I spun in circles, panic rising in my chest. My friends were gone. "Kathy! Mark!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "Where are you?" Silence met my cries, making the forest feel even more isolating. The laughter echoed again, sinking into my bones. It sounded almost playful now, like a child in the dark. I fought against the urge to run deeper into the woods, but the memory of that figure outside the cabin gripped my mind. I needed to focus. My phone. I fumbled for it in my pocket. The screen lit up, but there was no signal. I cursed under my breath. What kind of camping spot had no cell service these days? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I turned back to the trail, praying it would lead me back to where I came from. I retraced my steps, but with every turn, the trees seemed to shift around me, confounding my efforts. The way back felt altered, as if the forest was toying with me. "Kathy!" I called again, willing my voice to remain steady. I stepped forward cautiously, listening for any sound of movement. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of something through the trees, a flash of red fabric. My heart quickened. I took off, pushing through the branches. "Kathy!" I shouted again, but the laughter grew stronger, playing tricks on my mind. The red was gone. I stumbled to a halt, breathless and disoriented. Then I heard a rustle behind me. My skin prickled. I whipped around, ready to face whatever horror was hiding. It was just a squirrel darting away. I closed my eyes, trying to calm down. I couldn't let fear consume me. When I opened my eyes, a chill crept through the air, colder than before. I had to find my friends. Ignoring the voice whispering to join whatever was lurking in the dark, I pushed on. It felt like hours before I spotted a faint light filtering through the trees. I hurried toward it, desperate for confirmation that I wasn't alone. As I reached a large clearing, my heart sank. It wasn't the campfire, but another cabin. This one appeared more solid and modern than the one I had first explored. Feeling drawn in, I approached the door cautiously. It was slightly ajar, and a strange humming sound wafted from within. Felt familiar. I paused, realizing it was the same tone as the strange laughter I had heard earlier. I pushed the door open, and the noise amplified, echoing around me. I could see flickering shadows dancing against the walls. My stomach twisted in fear, but I stepped inside. The air was thick, almost electric, buzzing with an energy that left me breathless. Then I saw them. My friends were there, Kathy and Mark, sitting in a circle on the floor, their backs toward me. They were eerily still, and I felt nauseous. "Guys!" I rushed to them, and when they turned, their eyes were wide and distant, void of the warmth I knew. "Welcome back," they whispered in unison, their voices chilling and flat. I staggered back, confusion mixing with terror. What had happened to them? I wanted to scream, but the thrill of the laughter encroached upon my throat, choking me. "Join us!" they echoed, a cruel grin spreading across their faces. And just like that, I understood. Whatever had called out to me in the woods was inviting me in, and this was only the beginning. I whipped around, desperation clawing at me. They weren't my friends anymore. Their faces twisted into something alien, and the familiarity faded. I needed to escape, but the doorway felt like a trap, closing in on me as the shadows flickered menacingly. "Guys, snap out of it," I shouted, my voice breaking. The words hung in the air, heavy with dread. They didn't respond. Instead, they began to chant in a low, jagged tone, echoing the laughter that had haunted me throughout the forest. "Join us! Join us!" Their eyes, once filled with warmth, now glinted with something dark, something hungry. It was as though they were ensnared in a spell, unable to break free. Panic surged in me, pushing down the fear that threatened to consume my thoughts. I turned and bolted for the door. My heart raced as I shoved it open, a rush of cold air hitting my face. But I didn't stop. I plunged back into the darkness, fueled only by sheer instinct. I ran deeper into the trees, branches scratching at my skin. The laughter echoed behind me, twisting around my thoughts. I needed to find a way out, away from their chanting. The laughter seemed to follow me, echoing in my mind as I stumbled through the underbrush. Then, I spotted a flash of red again, the color beckoning me further into the woods. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest. Felt wrong, yet I moved toward it. Maybe it was a sign. Maybe it was Kathy or Mark, my friends still trapped in this twisted game. As I drew closer, the red faded again, only to reveal a path that diverged from where I had come. Instinct screamed at me to keep running, but curiosity gnawed at me. I didn't know which way would lead me to safety. The path was overgrown, branches heavy with mist. As I walked, I felt the air change. It became thick and stifling. I instinctively stepped back, but that was when I heard it, a whisper. "Help us." The voice floated through the air, familiar yet distant. I recognized it immediately. It was Mark's. My heart raced as I strained to listen. "Find us. We're here." Desperation shot through me. I had to find them, but I could feel the forest shifting around me again, disorienting me, as if it didn't want me to leave. I took a deep breath, trying to will the fear from my mind. "Mark, Kathy," I shouted again, and the moment my voice pierced the silence, the temperature dropped. The atmosphere thickened, suffocating me. Shadows pooled at my feet, and I could feel something brushing against my ankles. I turned to run again, but as I did, something icy wrapped around my wrist. I gasped and yanked my hand back, but it clamped tighter, pulling me back. Couldn't see what it was. It felt like fingers with no body, ancient and malicious. Then, I sensed it, the laughter returning, louder, closer. I spun around, but the clearing behind me was empty. The trees leaned in, watching. My heart raced in fear. I was trapped. When I saw it. A figure emerging from the shadows, a tall silhouette with deep-set, glimmering eyes staring directly at me. I had nowhere to run, and with every second that passed, the laughter grew louder, enveloping me, drowning out my thoughts. Terror gripped my heart as the realization hit me. I wasn't just running from my friends anymore. I was being hunted by something far worse. I didn't want to believe it. The figure before me loomed taller with every frantic heartbeat, its eyes piercing through the shadows that clung to the trees. A chill shot through my spine, forcing me to instinctively step back. But there was nowhere to go. The darkness pressed in, smothering me like a thick blanket. "Who are you?" I managed to choke out, my voice trembling. Felt absurd to ask when all I wanted was to run. The figure remained silent, unmoving, yet I felt its gaze burning into me, judging. Then I heard it again, a whisper, more urgent this time. "Help us." It was Mark. The plea echoed around me, wrapping me in a false sense of hope. My mind raced. Where were they? Were they close? In that moment of distraction, I felt the icy grip on my wrist tighten, pulling me backward. I let out a sharp yelp, scrambling for something to hold on to. My pulse thundered in my ears as I strained against the unseen force. The figure took a step forward, the shadows swirling around its feet. It was unmistakable now, the laughter. It erupted like a wave, crashing over me, mocking my fear. In that instant, I realized the figure wasn't he alone. More shapes began to materialize in the gloom, emerging from the trees like twisted reflections of my friends. "Join us," they whispered in unison, a chorus of haunting echoes. I could see their faces, now familiar yet distorted, eyes glimmering with dark hunger. My friends were gone, lost in whatever this thing was. "No, fight it," I screamed. Felt like I was shouting into the void. I squeezed my eyes shut, desperately wishing this nightmare would end. Something deep inside me screamed to break free, to run, but I felt utterly paralyzed. Suddenly, the icy fingers recoiled, and I stumbled forward. I opened my eyes back to the now empty clearing, but the laughter had stopped. The figure remained, its expression unreadable, the shadows surrounding it swirling like smoke. "Time is running out," it finally spoke, its voice a low rumble. "You must choose." "Choose? Choose what?" I yelled, but it only smiled an eerie, toothy grin that sent shivers down my spine. The mist curled around me, thickening, making it harder to breathe. I didn't understand. I needed to find Mark and Kathy, but this thing seemed to hold all the answers if only it would speak clearly. The urge to run clawed at me, but I stood frozen, as my instincts warred with my need for clarity. "Choose now," it insisted, the shadows swirling faster, threatening to envelop me completely. I could barely think. The echoes of laughter began anew, flooding my mind, reminding me of all that was lost. When I noticed something glimmering on the ground, a small red object, nearly buried under leaves. The color was familiar, like the flash I had seen before. It pulsed with energy, almost calling out to me. I reached out, the shadows recoiling slightly as I did. As soon as my fingers brushed it, clarity hit me like a lightning bolt. I didn't just want to escape. I needed to confront whatever dark magic had taken my friends. I lifted the red object, feeling its warmth seep into my skin, and glanced back at the figure, determination surging through me. "I choose to fight for them." The laughter erupted again, now mixed with a furious roar from the being in front of me. It lunged, shadows stretching out like grasping hands, but I was ready. The air seemed to vibrate with energy, and I held the red object tightly. "Let them go," I shouted, feeling the weight of my choice crashing around me like a tidal wave. Then everything went dark. I blinked, but the darkness didn't lift. It swallowed me whole, leaving no trace of the clearing, the figure, or the shadows. Panic clawed at my throat. I reached out, feeling nothing but emptiness around me. I took a breath, forcing myself to stay calm and listen. Sound returned, first a strange hum that vibrated through the air. It was faint, like a melody haunting the edges of my mind. As I focused on it, I felt a crackle of energy flow from the red object still clutched in my hand. I squeezed it tighter, hoping for guidance. Suddenly, a lit path flickered into view, illuminated by an otherworldly glow. It wrapped around me, guiding my instincts. I hesitated, glimpsing shadows lurking just out of sight. But the pull of the path was undeniable. I stumbled forward, stumbling into the light, driven by the voices of my friends echoing in the back of my mind. "Mark? Kathy?" I called out, my voice shaky. The only response was the echo of my own voice fading away into the swirling darkness. My heart raced. Couldn't be trapped here. I wouldn't let that happen. Staring at the path, I took a deep breath and pushed onward, each step feeling both heavy and hopeful. As I moved, the light grew brighter, and with it my surroundings began to shift. The walls of darkness twisted and turned, revealing glimpses of twisted trees and flickering shadows retreating from the light. They seemed to whisper as they faded, their voices indistinct yet taunting. Then I saw it, a shadowy form blocking my way. It was distorted, vibrating like the air around it. My heart dropped as I recognized the familiar face. "Kathy? I'm here," she replied, but her voice was strained, as if it were being dragged down by an unseen force. Her eyes were wide with fear, reflecting confusion and a depth of darkness I had never seen before. What happened? I asked, moving closer, desperate to break through the barrier that kept us apart. Where's Mark? Are you okay? I don't know. It wants us. She stammered, looking past me towards the blackness. It feeds on us. You have to get out while you still can. But I couldn't leave her. Not now. No, I'm not leaving you. We can fight it together. I raised the red object, its warmth comforting against my palm. Kathy's face etched with sadness. You don't understand. It's too late for me. If you stay, you'll be lost like the others. Her words stung. I knew what she meant. I could sense the shadows growing stronger behind me. They whispered promises of despair and hopelessness. I had to make a choice, but hearing Kathy shook my resolve. Then I saw it, the glimmer of Mark's backpack, half buried under leaves at the edge of the clearing. It had the same deep red as the object in my hand. We can save him too. Come on, I shouted, but as I turned, the laughter of the unseen entity erupted again, filling the air with a malevolent energy. I felt it then, a rush of wind, sharp and bitter, pushing me back against the wall of shadows. Choose, the voice bellowed, vibrating through my bones. No, I yelled back, my heart pounding as I grasped the red object tighter. I refused to choose. I will fight for my friends. But before I could move, the shadows surged, and Kathy's terrified expression vanished. The last glimpse of her faded into darkness, and in that moment, I realized I was truly alone. Fear tightened its grip around my throat, but amidst the chaos, a single thought sparked in my mind. I had to find a way to break through. With shaking hands, I plunged into the darkness, determined to uncover what lay beyond. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the darkness shattered, revealing a new scene, and a chilling discovery awaited me. The light washed over me in waves, revealing a landscape I barely recognized. Where the clearing had been, I now stood in a shadowy forest, but this wasn't any regular woods. The trees twisted unnaturally, their branches contorted like skeletal fingers reaching for something beyond. I stumbled forward, disoriented. The air felt thick and heavy, charged with an electric tension that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I spun around, searching for anything familiar. Kathy! Mark! I yelled again, but my voice felt small against the oppressive silence that enveloped me. Ahead lay a clearing, different from the one I'd just left. The light flickered, drawing me closer. As I approached, I noticed a series of strange symbols etched into the ground, patterns that seemed to pulse with the same rhythm as the humming sound I had heard earlier. My heart sank as I recognized one symbol. A spiral, reminiscent of the one I'd seen in Mark's sketches before the trip. That thought sparked a flicker of hope. Maybe Mark was close. I knelt beside the symbols, tracing them with my fingers. A wave of warmth spread from the red object in my hand, illuminating the shapes and casting eerie shadows around me. What do you want? I whispered, although fear twisted my stomach. A nervous energy danced through the air, and the symbols began to glow brighter. I felt the hum intensify, swelling like a heartbeat. Was it a good sign, or a warning? I took a deep breath, trying to silence the doubts racing through my mind. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, weaving between the trees. My heart raced at the sight, but hope surged when I recognized its face. Mark! I shouted, relief flooding through me. Thank God! But as he stepped into the light, my expression faltered. Mark looked different. His eyes were wide and wild, filled with a fear I could barely comprehend. You shouldn't be here, he yelled, his voice trembling. It's a trap. Mark, we have to get out of here. Where's Kathy? I just saw her. His gaze flickered to the darkness beyond, and I could see apprehension set in. Don't mention her name. It knows we're together. You need to leave now. I took a step back, confusion roiling in my gut. But we can't just leave her. Mark shook his head, frantic. This place feeds off our connections. It thrives on our fear. If you stay here, it will consume all of us. Before I could respond, shadows began to creep closer, creeping between the trees like smoke. The pulsing hum shifted. It turned frantic, warning me of the danger that encircled us. I could feel the energy of the red object waver, dimming slightly as trepidation seeped into my skin. "Mark, we can't abandon Kathy," I insisted, more determined than ever. "We have to do something." He grabbed my arm, urgency flashing across his face. "You don't understand. The more you fight for her, the stronger it becomes. We need to break its hold." As he spoke, the shadows wrapped tightly around us, whispering insidious things. Then I saw Kathy's face, briefly illuminated in the depths of the dark, her terrified expression pleading for help. The sight ignited something deep within me, propelling me forward. I refused to let it win. I screamed, gripping the red object tightly. "We can't give in now." And with that, the ground beneath us trembled. The symbols glowed blindingly, and everything went dark. I gasped, the darkness swallowing me whole. Just when I thought I couldn't breathe, a new light flashed to life around me. I felt like I was being thrown, or pulled, into another dimension. My heart raced wildly, each beat echoing like thunder in the void. I landed hard on a cool, soft surface. The ground felt different from the forest. The air was lighter, filled with fragrant scents that made the chaos in my head subside for a moment. I blinked rapidly, trying to adjust to my surroundings. I was in a different clearing, but the atmosphere still felt charged. What had just happened? Had I failed? As I stood up, my pulse began to calm. I brushed dirt from my clothes and scanned the area. There were no symbols here, no strange shadows, just wildflowers swaying gently in the breeze. It was almost serene. But then I heard it, the hum. It was faint but persistent, like a distant engine. A chill raced through me. This was still connected to the shadowy forest. I had to find Mark and Kathy, but this time I had to be smart. "Mark," I called out. The name felt hollow in the silence. "Kathy." No response. I took a step, feeling the ground beneath me stabilize, but dread twisted inside. I felt more alone than ever. That's when I heard a rustling from behind a nearby thicket. My heart leapt. "Mark." I rushed over, but as I drew closer, the rustling turned sharper. Panic rippled through me. A figure stepped forward. It was not Mark. "Who are you?" I demanded, squaring my shoulders. The stranger had an otherworldly presence, like they didn't quite fit into this place. Their eyes glinted with a strange light, and their features were sharp, too defined against the soft backdrop. "I know where she is," the figure whispered, a thin smile creeping across their face. "Kathy?" I asked, voice shaking. "What do you know about her?" The figure tilted their head, studying me. "More than you think. But you want like the truth. Just tell me." I snapped, frustration boiling over. "Couldn't lose her too?" "Not here." A low chuckle escaped their lips, sending shivers down my spine. "This is not a game, child. You must choose. Save yourself or embrace the shadow." What did they mean? Was this some kind of sick joke? Before I could respond, I caught a glimpse of movement in the distance. A flash of red caught my eye. The color sent my heart racing. I had to know. "Wait," I shouted as I dashed toward it. The figure called something after me, but I ignored them, driven by a mix of fear and hope. I broke through the thicket, breathless. The clearing expanded before me, but it felt wrong. The trees twisted more aggressively here, shadows curling around their trunks. And there, on the ground, was an item, a familiar red object. I reached for it, my pulse quickening. Just as my fingers brushed against it, the shadows swelled, and I heard Kathy's voice cry out from somewhere within the dark. "Help me!" The shadows pulsed with anger, and the hum, once a soft thrumming, shifted into a rage-filled roar. I froze, my heart pounding as a dozen questions flooded my mind. How could I confront this darkness? And what sacrifice would be required to save Kathy? I had no choice. I had to go in. With newfound determination surging through me, I clutched the red object tightly and stepped forward into the waiting shadows. As I stepped into the shadows, they wrapped around me like cold fingers, clinging to my skin. I tightened my grip on the red object, the only tangible link I had to Kathy. My heart raced again. Each breath was heavier, like I was inhaling darkness itself. That when I noticed it, the shadows weren't just shadows. They flickered and swayed, taking on forms that twisted and melted before my eyes. I could almost make out faces within them, their features contorted in anguish. "Kathy!" I shouted again, desperation lacing my words. "Where are you?" But my voice felt swallowed by the void. The hum became louder, a cacophony drowning out my thoughts. I pressed forward, my instincts screaming to turn back, but I couldn't. The cries of the lost echoed around me. They were desperate. They were pleading. I stumbled, my foot catching on something hidden beneath the thick veil of shadows. As I crouched to steady myself, I felt something sharp pierce the soft skin of my palm. I winced and pulled back, bringing my hand into the dim light. Fresh blood glistened against the red object. When it dawned on me, the red object wasn't merely familiar. It was my blood. My heart raced in horror. My hand shook as I attempted to gather myself. Couldn't let fear take control. My thoughts drifted to the figure I had encountered earlier. The choice they'd spoken of suddenly felt pivotal. Could I confront this? Would embracing the shadow mean losing myself in the process? "Kathy!" I cried out again, forcing my voice to stay steady. To my surprise, a whisper came back, barely audible against the thrumming murmur of chaos. "Lily, help!" My heart clenched. There was hope. I pushed deeper into the shadows, the air thickening around me. Staring ahead, I finally spotted something, a flicker of light through the mass. Was she there? As I approached, the shadows recoiled. It was as if the very darkness feared the light. I squeezed the bloodied object tighter, realizing it was both a burden and a beacon. I needed to wield it wisely. Suddenly, I saw her, a figure slumped against a twisted tree. My breath caught. "Kathy!" But before I could reach her, the ground beneath trembled. The shadows writhed violently, drawing closer, threatening to envelop us both. I could see the outlines of hands reaching out, grasping, clawing. The stranger's warning rang in my ears. "Save yourself or embrace the shadow." Panic surged through me. I was not equipped for this. "Lily, don't." Kathy's voice pierced the chaos, filled with urgency. "You have to let me go." What? A rush of confusion flooded over me. How could she ask that? Did she know something I didn't? "Kathy, I'm not leaving you," I yelled, panic coursing through my veins. But as the shadows clawed closer, I was confronted with that haunting choice again. Just then, a blinding light shot from the red object, tearing open a pathway in the darkness. Was this the answer? I hesitated, feeling the weight of Kathy's despair against the raging shadows. I had to decide. In that breathless moment, everything changed. The shadows began to recede, as if the light recognized its own. Whatever was in my blood, it demanded to be unleashed. But would it save Kathy, or doom us both? Then, something in the distance caught my eye, another figure, emerging from the darkness, drawn to the light. And this time, it wasn't just Kathy's voice that cried for help. It was a chorus of whispers, and they were all calling my name. The light wrapped around me as I stood frozen, both hopeful and terrified at what I might uncover. That figure emerged from the shadows, flickering like a candle striving to remain lit against the wind. I squinted, heart pounding, trying to discern the familiar outline. Was it Mark? Was he somehow intertwined in this web of shadows? "Lily." The voice that called my name was distorted but recognizable. It was Mark, overwhelmed with urgency. "Get out of here. You don't understand what it's doing to us." I could feel the breath catch in my throat. "I'm not leaving you," I shouted back, voice shaking as the pulsating shadows pressed closer. "Kathy needs us. You both need my help. Help us," came a chorus of reluctant voices weaving through the turbulence, each echoing the desperation I felt tenfold. But as their shadows swirled, the laughter returned, a sinister tangle of humor and chaos that vibrated in my bones. The air felt electric, thick with tension, and I caught a glimpse of the fading light at the edges of the clearing. The entity that had loomed in the shadows before was growing clearer, both alluring and threatening, a figure of unfamiliar design with grinning eyes that seemed older than time. It shifted, stretching grotesquely toward me, demanding, "Choose. They are already too far gone." "No," I shouted, each word a refusal to surrender. "I refuse to let you take them. I will fight." The red object pulsed fiercely in my grasp, a heartbeat in sync with my resolve. In a split second, everything shifted. The shadows recoiled from the light radiating off the red object, coiling back like frightened snakes. I took a step forward, determination hardening in my resolve. "If you think you can keep us here, you're wrong. I'm not afraid of you." Mark's figure wavered, uncertainty creeping into his expression. "Lily, listen. It's feeding off your fear. Fight it with your strength." The connection I felt with the glowing red object surged through me. I could see shades of my friends trapped in the darkness, lost in their own torment. They weren't just shadows. They were whispers of who they had once been. It was all a ploy, a dark game I hadn't fully understood until now. "Let them go," I yelled, fists tightened around the object, channeling every ounce of love, anger, and fear into that single plea. I didn't care what it might cost me anymore. I was ready to shatter the veil between us and do what needed to be done. Light erupted from the red object, scattering the shadows and illuminating the space around me. The figures of Mark and Kathy emerged vividly, closer than before, but still tortured, listeners in a cruel game of cat and mouse as they lingered at the edges of a dim truce. "Lily," Mark shouted, eyes reflecting a mixture of pain and hope. "Grab my hand. We can pull through this together." I extended my hand, feeling them just within reach, but a sudden surge of force erupted from the darkness. "Let them go," it whispered sweetly, the laughter echoing again, more insistent than before. The shadows lurched forward, stretching like tendrils, wrapping around their ankles, pooling thicker around them. I glanced back, and in that brief moment, their faces contorted, desperation transforming into grim acceptance. "No," but the shadows surged in, and the figure's horrid grimace broadened into a horrible smile. The explosion of light I had summoned faltered as the essence of my friends began to dissipate into the depths, fighting against the dark that craved them. "Mark, Kathy," I cried out, desperate to cling to them, but could barely maintain my own footing against the weight of their pull. At that moment, I felt a powerful force flood through me, a connection rooted deep in the very fabric of my being. It rang clear: love, loyalty, friendship, a strength far greater than the shadows could contain. I closed my eyes, focusing on their faces, the laughter we had shared, the warmth that once wrapped around us like a protective shield. "Come back," I screamed, pouring every ounce of my energy into my voice and the glowing red object. The laughter turned into an ear-piercing screech as the shadows writhed violently, reflecting my resolve. Then, from the depths of the encroaching darkness, I caught a glimpse, a flicker of red fabric, bright and tangible. The sight captivated me. It was all I needed. I surged forward, plunging my hand into the sinister embrace. With a final push, I reached out, feeling as though I was tearing apart reality itself. As I gripped the red fabric, the air cleaved, and a shock wave of light burst forth, and darkness erupted into a whirlwind of chaos. The shadows shrieked, contorting around us, and then, everything fell silent. My eyes fluttered open to see the clearing again, bathed in shimmering light. The shadows dissipated like a fading dream, no longer holding their twisted forms. I gasped in disbelief, still gripping the now dulled red object tightly. But where were Mark and Kathy? I whipped around frantically, searching the edges of the glowing clearing. "Mark? Kathy?" My voice was hoarse, strained with disbelief and desperation. There was no reply. Panic surged anew. Alone again in this unfamiliar sanctuary, I felt the corners of doubt creeping back in. Had I truly saved them? Or was this just another trick? It hadn't felt real when I'd reached out for them. Everything had lingered on the precipice between existence and oblivion. Then, a soft breeze whispered through the trees, carrying an echo of laughter. Not the mocking type, but something warm and familiar. I couldn't account for it, but I let it fill me. Felt like hope. I took a deep breath, standing still in the aftermath, swaying slightly with uncertainty. Before I could question the nature of reality, something caught my eye just beyond the clearing. A figure emerged, hesitant and carefully stepping into the light. As they grew closer, I felt my breath hitch. It was a silhouette, shadowed but undeniably familiar. Lily? My heart raced as I recognized Mark. Relief flooded through me, and soon after, Kathy stepped from the treeline, clothes still ruffled from their journey, yet their spirits intact. We thought we lost you," Mark exclaimed, rushing toward me, pulling me into a tight embrace. "I thought you were gone." I felt my voice tremble, unsure what to say next. The relief was too much to contain as I let the warmth of the moment envelop me. But deep in my heart, questions remained. "Where were we?" Kathy asked, glancing around the clearing, bewildered but safe. "I don't know," I said softly, "but it's over. We escaped." The laughter echoed once more, fading into the whispers of the woods. And somewhere in that laugh, I found a haunting comfort. The oppressive dark no longer contained me. It had vanished for now. Yet, as we stood together, faces illuminated by the fading light, I realized something lingered, still, a quiet unease, a question that would always trail behind me. Were we truly free, or had we only escaped from one shadow into another? As I looked back towards the deep woods with a heavy heart, I felt a tingle of uncertainty rushing through me. Perhaps this wouldn't be the last time I folded into the embrace of darkness, or perhaps we were still woven into its intricate tapestry. But for now, standing with my friends, all that mattered was the light between us. I moved away from the trees and felt the warmth of safety surrounding. But in the back of my mind, the laughter hummed softly, a reminder of what danced in the shadows, lingering like a breath against the neck, a haunting promise I might never forget.